What if I told you there's one number that can reveal how strong your country really is, how much people are spending, earning, and even how confident they feel about the future? That number is called GDP, and it secretly controls your job opportunities, your investments, and even your cost of living. But what is GDP, really? And why should you care about it? Let's break it down in plain English. Part 1. What is GDP? Narrator. GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. In simple terms, it's the total value of all goods and services produced within a country over a specific period, usually a year or a quarter. Think of it as the country's report card. If GDP is growing, the economy is doing well. If GDP is shrinking, things might be going wrong. Visual example. If America produces $28 trillion worth of stuff, cars, burgers, software, healthcare, in 1 year, that's the US GDP. Part 2. How GDP is calculated. There are 3 main ways to calculate GDP. But don't worry, we'll keep it simple. The spending approach, most common. Add up everything people spend on. Consumer spending, you buying groceries or Netflix subscriptions. Business investments, companies buying machines or buildings, government spending schools. Roads, defense, net exports, exports minus imports. Formula: GDP equals C plus I plus G plus XM. Consumption plus investment plus government spending plus net exports. The income approach. Add up everyone's income, wages, rent, profits, and interest. The production approach. Add up the value of everything produced and subtract what's used up in production. All 3 should theoretically give you the same number, because spending equals income equals production in the economy. Part 3. Types of GDP. Not all GDP numbers are equal. Here are the key types you'll hear about. Nominal GDP, measured in current prices, doesn't adjust for inflation. Real GDP, adjusted for inflation, shows actual growth in goods services. GDP per capita. GDP divided by population shows average income per person. GDP growth rate, the percentage change from one period to the next. Basically, how fast the economy is growing. Example: if GDP grows 3% in a year, that means the economy is producing 3% more than before. Part 4. Why GDP matters. So why should you care about GDP? Here's why. Jobs and opportunities. When GDP rises, businesses make more money, hire more people, and pay better wages. Stock market growth. A growing GDP often means stronger corporate earnings and rising stock prices. Government decisions. Politicians use GDP to shape policies from taxes to interest rates. Investor confidence. Global investors look at GDP growth before putting money into a country. Cost of living. When GDP slows, unemployment can rise and inflation can bite harder. In short, GDP isn't just an economic term. It affects your wallet, your job, and your investments. Part 5. GDP's limitations. But here's the catch. GDP doesn't tell the whole story. It doesn't measure happiness, health, or wealth inequality. If a company cuts down a forest and sells the wood, GDP goes up, even though the environment suffers. If you volunteer or care for a family member, GDP doesn't count that, even though it's valuable work. That's why economists often say, GDP measures everything except what really matters. Still, it remains the best single indicator of economic activity. Part 6. How to use this as an investor. If you're an investor or entrepreneur, GDP can be a powerful signal. When GDP grows, it's often a good time for businesses, stocks, and risk-taking. When GDP slows, recessions, layoffs, and falling stock prices can follow. Pro tip: keep an eye on US GDP reports from the Bureau of Economic Analysis, BEA. They're released quarterly, and Wall Street pays close attention. Smart investors use these reports to adjust portfolios, predict market moves, and even choose which sectors to invest in. So, the next time you hear GDP grew by 2% this quarter, remember, it's not just a boring number economists throw around. It's a snapshot of your country's financial heartbeat, and it quietly influences everything from your paycheck to your portfolio. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more easy-to-understand finance videos every week. And comment below, do you think GDP truly reflects a nation's success? Because sometimes, the numbers don't tell the whole story. GDP explained. What is GDP? GDP growth. Economy explained. Economic basics, U.S. economy. Stock market for beginners. How GDP works. Gross domestic product. Inflation. Economic growth. GDP per capita. Recession. Investing for beginners. Finance education.